Admiral Watley calls Deep Space Nine a floating bicycle wheel. Jake was a little worried that he overcooked the link to roast, and Captain Sisko and Cassidy Yates run off together on an adventure to find Bahala. No? Hey, everybody, welcome to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc, Lofton.
What's up? What's up? Bahala.
I thought you were going to save me on that one, but you did not. You let me just hang there, just all by myself.
I was not expecting that. That was not how I thought it was going to go down. So
yeah. Sorry about that, everybody. Thanks. My name is Ryan T. Husk. Today we're doing a review of Deep Space Nine's Season 5, Episode 10, Rapture, story by L.J. Strom, written by Hans Beimler, directed by, well, what do you know? We were literally just talking about him, Mr. Jonathan West. How you doing?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Nice. Mr. Jonathan West, huh? I didn't even see that he was the director on this one.
Yeah. Yeah, and he just did a couple weeks ago, he did for us Trials and Tribulations. Well, not for us, for the world, for all of us.
For the world. Yeah. No, he's really cool on this one. There were a couple of shots that I liked. One of them was from the overhead view of the obelisk, kind of looking down on Sisko.
Interesting, yeah.
I like that shot while he was kind of meditating there. Cool shot.
It kind of gives you this weird, almost like a discombobulation kind of, like you just different certain angles and different angles give you different feelings, you know, like if you're shooting up at somebody, it makes them seem like more ominous or, you know, intimidating. And then shooting from like that angle gives you like this strange, disconcerting kind of feel, you know, it's a good way to do it.
Yeah, it gives like this perspective, like you have this overlooking perspective that kind of gives an out of body experience.
Yeah.
Out of body feel to it, or maybe just watching as an observer. It just gives a different kind of feeling from the audience point, right? It just hits a certain nerve there that adds to the context of what's happening and the kind of strangeness of the moment and what we're catching and witnessing here. This episode I really did enjoy, though. There were a few instances where I felt like they could have taken a little bit further, because it did feel like, it felt like to me like a Indiana Jones episode, like one of those, you know, treasure hunts. So, you know, DS9. Yeah, I don't know about you, but that was the feeling I got. Like the treasure hunt movies that we watched, the Indiana Jones. I think Nicolas Cage did the treasure hunt movies, National Treasure, I think it was called.
Yeah, National Treasure. Yeah.
So these kinds of, I love those movies, by the way. So this is one of those kinds of movies, shows that I felt like, oh wow, this is really a puzzle and it's a treasure hunt. And I thought they could have made a little bit more out of that.
Right. Yeah. And this kind of had that situation that we've seen a few times before in episodes where it felt like there was too much story to be crammed into 42 minutes or 45 minutes. So you kind of miss out on a little bit of each story. Like the entire episode could have been about this treasure hunt thing, and it seemed like it was going to be, but then it kind of veered into Bajoran politics, and it was almost like two episodes. It was almost like two things that should have been A plots or A stories, you know? But I definitely thought of you when he started searching for and eventually finding Bahala, because I don't know, man, that just seems like these are the kind of things that didn't hit me the first time I watched it. First time I watched it, I barely remember it. But when I watched it now, I'm just like, God, can you imagine how cool that would be if we found this ancient city, this, you know, whether it was, you know, this icon or this religious center or just a historic city that was 20,000 years old, and we've always been looking for it, and we finally found it. Like, can you imagine how significant and interesting that would be, and everybody, and so I actually got that feeling when they did that. I was like, wow, this is a big deal, and not just for, you know, the religious nature of the Bajorans, but just in archaeology and history, like looking back at a page in history. I don't know, man, that would just seem like, and I wish we could have spent more time on that, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I think I can give an example of the kind of city that you're talking about, Atlantis.
It's funny because I thought you would actually bring that up too. That's so weird.
Yeah. So, you know, Atlantis has been talked about. It was documented in one of the old
Socrates,
scholarly work. Was it Socrates?
It was either Socrates or Plato. It was one of those two,
I think it was Socrates that detailed in his writings about seeing Atlantis and how it was more remarkable than Egypt, and you know how amazing it was. So yeah, it would be like finding Atlantis, because we've been looking for it for only like 20,000 years now, right? Or 10,000 years. So it's like, hey, it would be nice to find it. Then that was a good joke that they had in this episode where Admiral Watley was like, so we've been looking for this thing for 20,000 years and you found it in 2 days, right?
Yeah.
It was a nice little play, but there's a lot of stuff there that they played upon. I mean, the obelisk, for example, this obelisk that has this message encoded inside of it, which Sisko is plagued and has to, you know, figure out. There could have been more involved with that. Maybe riddles. Yeah. Maybe the prophets coming in visions and showing him little things here and there, and they could have delve into the dream state that he was in. They seem to have gone into his prophetic dream states a few times with the prophets. I thought they could have went into his mind and his psyche at some point to kind of see him maybe being guided by the prophets or having conversations with the prophets. I was kind of anticipating that more so than just watching him kind of stare at this thing and him internalizing the thought process. I kind of wanted to be involved with the thought process more, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. And this has happened again a couple times before, where it feels like either this is 2 different episodes because there are 2 interesting stories that really neither one should take a B plot, a backseat to the other one, or it should be a 2-part episode. But I think that, look, it's not on a big enough scale to be a 2-part episode. So I don't know what the solution is, but what we had was a really interesting story that, I wish we could have seen more of. I hadn't thought of going into Sisko's mind. I was thinking like this treasure hunt, like following the whole. I mean, he found it pretty quickly and easily, and he's like, Cassidy, let's go on an adventure. 2 minutes later, they're back. They got everything's cool. By the way, when Cassidy comes back, welcome back, Cassidy. Like, we could talk about that a little more. That was so great. When she comes back after 6 months in prison, and the first thing he says is, hey, you free the next few hours? He goes, what do you do in the next few hours? I was like,
Yeah, I didn't think they would be in a cave. That's for sure.
She's like, what do you have in mind? He's like, oh, go climbing in some dirt. Oh,
yeah. Not exactly the best welcome, and that was another plot line that really got swept under the rug in the episode. Right? This is kind of a big deal. This is his love interest. She went away for doing something really, questionable, and they could have went into the psychology of the 2 of them having to bridge this relationship, and and having to deal with whatever fallout of having been incarcerated. But they didn't go into that as much. They really swept that under the rug and made it way beyond a B plot, like a C or D plot.
Right. Like, can you imagine if they extended the treasure hunt portion where they're climbing through the caves and stuff, and all of that comes out and develops as they're doing this adventure together?
Exactly. Yes. And that's where I feel like they missed an opportunity to give me more of what was inside Sisko's mind.
Yeah.
Him being trapped in his mind and not really voicing out what he was feeling. I wanted to see what he was feeling. So maybe, yeah, I think that would have been great. The two of them maybe getting trapped in a certain area in the cave, and you brought me here and this and that. This is your fault, and none of this would have happened for this and that. And then maybe have a little bit more of an argument, that could have maybe led to them finding this cave. But it was like, oh, right beyond that wall, bing. I'm like, they looked for this thing for 20,000 years. They couldn't find. The guy had one phaser blast to the wall, and that was all it took. It was like, maybe expanding upon that more. They mentioned, for example, the alignment of the stars and certain things. So maybe it could have been about a certain day and time. And, at one point, the reflection of the light in this would cause the passageway to open, something to that extent. Right?
And they have
just seemed real.
I was just going to say, they have had episodes like that in Star Trek, where the entire episode is like you call it, like a treasure hunt. Like it's a mystery where they're figuring it out. There's the Indiana Jones. They've definitely done this before. And I'm trying to remember if Deep Space Nine has ever done one full. I guess, yeah, the Sword of Kahless was very much like that. It was a little bit less about the hunt and more about the overall adventure of finding it and then escaping, and just the whole, that was very Indiana Jones. But I don't know, other than that.
Yeah, because from it being about this Bajoran mystical place that was hidden for all these years. Okay, that's a huge storyline in itself. And instead of going in deeply into that, it felt like they touched upon it a little bit. They touched upon a little bit of this. They touched upon a little bit of that. Was the overarching story to tell you about the decision that Sisko is making to sacrifice his life in order to obtain this divine knowledge, right? Yeah. And to me, ultimately, it kind of boiled down to that, right? Sisko said that he wanted to sacrifice his life, that it didn't matter to him whether he lived or died, as long as he got to this spiritual enlightened place, like where we imagine Buddha or Jesus or all of these people who have reached some level
David Copperfield,
the people that have reached a certain level of enlightenment, we expect that he's searching for that in this episode. And ultimately, they made it more about whether he was willing to sacrifice his life for that or not, for that moment, to obtain the information, to get to all the answers of the universe, within his grasp. And that strayed a little bit away from me from where, the significance it had to the Bajorans, the significance of just the treasure hunt itself and unlocking the mystery, maybe having more riddles involved, and maybe a key word somebody says, and that word made me remind me of what I saw in my dream, and it's all coming together. So I felt like they could have expanded upon the mystery of the treasure hunt, which I feel is always an interesting story in general. That's why I watch all the Indiana Jones movies, because it's fun.
And there's another one coming, by the way. There's another one coming. I don't know if you've seen the pictures.
There is?
Yeah, there are pictures of Harrison Ford on set with the hat, like the Indiana Jones hat. He's dressed up like the old days. So looking forward to that.
Well, if he gets any older, they're going to be looking for him in the archaeology underneath the ruins.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought Shia LaBeouf was the
I guess that's maybe later, or maybe he's in this one. But yeah, if he gets any older, they're going to call him Pangea Jones. Am I right? No. Maybe that's like a 3 or 4. Hey, but everybody in the live chat, let us know in or in the comments below other Star Trek episodes that have been all about, a treasure hunt or the adventure, the Indiana Jones kind of thing. Kind of like like we said, the Sword of Kahless. there was also the Gambit 1 and 2 in Next Generation, although that was only at the end that it kind of went into that direction. But there have been others, and so let us know in the comments your favorite ones or ones we may have forgotten. But yeah, Cirroc, I mean, we keep touching on all these different things, and I want to hit them all, but I'm trying to pick which one I want to jump on. I guess the one I want to jump on right now, since you mentioned it, like the conflict of, you know, living or dying and having these things, these visions, because it's got to be this really intense, it's almost like an addiction. Like once you become enlightened, can you imagine, like you could almost not bear to go back down to not being enlightened anymore, you know? And there was a moment, we're skipping ahead, but at the end, when Sisko is on the bed and everybody's trying to figure out what to do, and Kira's like, fuck him, let him die. Like, let him, you know, I want these visions. And I forgot how it ended. So my first thought, I even type it in, I said, whoa, dude, Jake needs to step up in here, step in here. Like they're all trying to decide. Jake needs to be like, excuse me, Doc, you're saying that you can save his life right now? Yeah. Okay. Shut up, guys. Yeah, do that. Like, you know, what do we even have this conversation? And then and then of course, then Bashir says that it's up to him. And I'm like, yep. And I don't know. It was just like, it was a fun moment for me because I'm like, you guys need to relax. Jake's right there. It's his call, and it's obvious what his call is. Give me a break. There's it's no contest.
It's not even a question, you know. It actually reminded me of the episode where Jake was possessed by this vampire lady, and she was sucking his brainwaves as he was writing.
The Muse, yeah, she was sucking them, yeah.
Yeah, but Jake had the same feeling that Sisko has, which is, I'm in the zone. You know, let me get in the zone. I don't care if I die. I don't care what happens. I'm in such a zone right now. I'm in the Zen moment. I'm willing to, you know, this is so important to me. I have to get all of this out. And to me, it's like Sisko falls victim to that same desire of, man, I'm in this zone, and you know, I don't want anybody to touch me. Just let me be. Even if I die, it's worth the sacrifice. And you know, that's what the appeal is for having access to this kind of power that's superhuman. When you feel like you have superhuman powers, you're almost willing to do anything to keep them. But it feels like Sisko actually steps into the role of the emissary really heavily in this episode. That could have been another highlight of this episode, another plot line that could have been expanded a little bit more upon, which is he's really embracing his emissary role in this episode. They didn't really hit that point too hard either.
Even after the surgery removes all of that from him, he is fully claiming this emissary mantle at this point. You know, when he says, yes, you know, are you saying this as a officer or as the emissary? And he says, well, first he flashes that $1 million smile, and then he says both. And yet that you're right, that shows that he is now perfectly fine being called the emissary, because he's like, that's clearly why I'm here, what I do. I mean, he might pass it off if he can still, but he clearly, this kind of situation changed him. You know, I mean, who wouldn't be changed by this?
Yeah, he definitely was changed by it. But you know, they gave me a bunch of little nuggets of things that I liked a lot. It just didn't give me enough of it, you know. So I know I'm being really critical of it. I still watched the episode really excited about.
Critical for the right reasons. It's because you liked all of the elements and you wanted more of them. Right. I get it. Yeah, I feel the same way.
I like the elements, and I don't know how much time we have left, but I did want to get a little bit into Kai Wynn and her presence on this show.
Yep, that was a very interesting. It was a very interesting new page in the Ballad of Kai Wynn, wasn't it?
Yeah, because I never knew this guy existed. And this was kind of the first time.
We didn't know whether to trust her. We're like, is she lying? Is she lying? The whole time, nope, she wasn't lying. She was just. It was as if Gul Dukat just shows up to help, and you're like, okay, what's really it? What's the thing? And then he just through every single scene, he's still helping, and at the end, he's like, okay, bye guys, and we're like, what?
The whole time I'm thinking this is going to go bad. She's got an ulterior motive. There's something she wants. She's setting Sisko up. I didn't trust her the whole time.
Yeah.
And then she gives this phenomenal kind of address to Kira.
Yeah.
Where she breaks it down to her like, I'm on the same side as you. I've suffered just as much as you've suffered, if not more. Yeah. And I kind of like felt bad for
Watch your mouth.
I know, it's kind of crazy. I don't want to say it all the way. But I feel bad for passing such critical judgment on her all of this time. Because I have been critical of her. I do think she walks around with this arrogance, and she does talk to people in a very condescending manner. So I'm not going to take those things back. She has been condescending. She is arrogant, and she is also self-centered and interested in her own elevation in politics and her career or whatever. So I'm not going to take away those things about her. But what I will add to those things, and I will weigh it in as I make judgments on her character, I will weigh in the fact that she has fought for her people. That she struggled alongside her people.
That's the word I was thinking too. Yeah. She has gone through the struggle as much as anybody.
She has gone through the struggle just as much as anybody. And she breaks that down to Kira. Like, I remember every beating I got. Like, just that alone was like, oh, damn.
Speaking of...
She's not...
I was just going to say, speaking of beating... we are beating the clock, and it's time for our break. No, that was terrible. It's time for a super quick break, but we could definitely talk more about that because there's so much good stuff.
It was a good moment.
And we'll be right back on the 7th rule.